Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. This is Carmen Benitez on behalf of Apartment Social Council, and we are so delighted that you all are here to get a chance to listen in and find out really great, interesting perspectives from a lineup of very well-regarded industry pros within the multifamily housing communities. With us today, our lineup includes Sarah Greenough of Princeton Properties, where she serves as Chief Marketing Officer and Senior Vice President. We also have Mark Julien, Vice President at J.C. Hart, and a very special guest today, Jonathan Saar, Vice President of Training and Customer Service with the Training Factor. Just to give you a quick little bio about Jonathan, he actually has been in the marketing and customer service arena for the last 15 years. In January 2009, he was brought on board by the Training Factor and has been using social media tools very extensively to brand the company he works for and to educate others on the benefits that come from using social media properly. His efforts quickly propelled the company he works for to become a nationally recognized brand within its industry. And we're delighted to have him here today. I've had the pleasure of being able to chat with Jonathan on different occasions through app chat on Twitter, as well as, interactions, on a personal level, just through phone calls. But we're really happy to have him here today on Apartment Social Council. So thank you very much, Jonathan, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So one of the things, the reason why we brought Jonathan on board, along with the others that are here, and hopefully we'll be able to bring in Eric Brown as well as and Brian Owen, is really to talk about something that is affecting a lot of different apartment communities across the country, and that is specifically how to go about developing and deploying an effective social media training program. We all know that many of us are going about doing social media, so we wanted to talk to people today to get their insight and their case studies and perspectives on just that topic itself. I know firsthand that there are companies out there that have very extensive social media programs, everything from social media policies in place to using different types of technology and tools, whereas others are allowing their teams to go about it on their own. So let us start today with Mark Julien. Mark, why don't you help us, better understand what you think the current social media training type of program is in the industry, and why do you think that maybe some companies, tend to either grab onto it and some companies that don't? Mark, are you with us? Hello?
Hey, Mark, can you hear us?
Well, I think from, my perspective. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello?
I can hear you. Can you not hear me?
We can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. Can you hear me? Good.
Yes.
All right. Here we go. Sorry about that. All right. Well, from my perspective, I think that there are a number of, variables in there. There's a lot of balls in the air when it comes to social media, and I think that's really the biggest challenge, is that it kind of seems to be a daunting task in the space to take that on. And I think that's why companies aren't really sure where to start. They aren't sure if they want to have their site teams just build something and, create that presence to say we're on social media, or if it needs to be an overall corporate initiative. And I think because it's kind of a little bit overwhelming, that's the challenge. But kind of like what we were talking about before, and what I've talked about a number of times, is that I think it has to start with an overall strategy for the company as a whole, and then it kind of trickles down to the property level. So I think that's really, from my perspective, where training kind of becomes a challenge, because there isn't necessarily an overall strategy in place up front.
I think that's probably a very good point about, going in, like trying to find out what that overall corporate strategy is, and then working that into like a trickle down effect down to the apartment communities. And maybe it's because, I think that it's probably that much more difficult because you're looking at apartment communities, apartment property management companies that have tens to hundreds of apartment communities, and not only do they have that, number of different people to train to be able to take that, corporate and community message out, but also to, be able to talk about it from that customer experience from, the different types of apartment communities. There's going to be a very different way of marketing an apartment community through the social space based off of somebody's class of the apartment itself. A garden-style apartment community is going to market very differently and have a different kind of customer experience. And I think and if you have had that experience, if you don't mind sharing a little bit more about that, because I agree it is very daunting. Is there a delay, Mark, with you?
And I think that's part of it, too. And I think part of it could be because companies are not necessarily real comfortable with the brand that they're trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
I am. I'm on a delay, huh?
2 minutes.
I'm not sure if I can adjust anything.
It's okay.
I'm on a 2-minute delay. Was I on a delay before?
You're a little delayed, but it's okay. Just keep going.
Sorry. I love technology. See, this is why the internet is so fantastic. All right. I'll just keep going. I don't even know where my thought was here, but I think one of the things that the challenge is that a lot of these companies don't necessarily know where their brand is. And this is going to be fun for people to watch later on, I'm sure. But they aren't really sure exactly what their brand is supposed to be. And just as you were kind of alluding to there, there's different probably classes of types of properties that we're going to have to market. And one of the things that, to me, I think people get confused on how to categorize. I think you have market rate, you have low income / subsidized, you probably have student housing, and then senior housing. There's really only maybe 4 categories you're in, and trying to dial in the message that you want to send to those different types of groups and making sure that you have that consistent message is a challenge.
Sure. But to overcome that challenge, do you think that have you found maybe some best practices that kind of transcend the different, market rate or, property class, so that, maybe there are certain fundamentals or principles?
I'd really dial it back into that this is, and I hate to dumb it down to this, I guess, but this is an SEO play. At the end of the day, our whole goal is to be found. And how you maybe define SEO in the traditional sense versus maybe the new SEO, which is basically search engine optimization or search optimization, whether that's being found socially or it's being found through a search engine. That's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to be discovered or we're trying to be found. And whether that be social communication or it be just from an SEO search perspective, those are the things that we're trying to build. And so some of the common pieces there are getting the assets, the online assets in place, getting a blog set up, getting a Facebook page in place, getting a Twitter account in place, basically claiming that online real estate so that you have an opportunity to be found or discovered. And those are the things. Now, as far as the content that goes into those, yes, then you can tailor it to the different types of assets or the different type of customers you're trying to go after. But getting those things in place, and especially the ones that you own on your URL, that blog to me is critical.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Just to talk about, you're talking about a lot of different setups.
I love the 3, 5, 15-second delay. This is great.
It's okay. It is okay. It's okay. We're going to be good. But going into the idea of there are Twitter accounts to set up and Facebook accounts to set up and blogs to set up, it kind of seems just those steps itself seem very daunting. Sarah, do you think that it makes sense for the community to go about introducing those different components on their own, or do you think that it really makes more sense for the corporate level to maybe at least initially get those started, or maybe is it to train the teams to be able to do it on their own?
Well, I absolutely feel that we have an obligation as the corporate entity here to make the infrastructure that they can all play in successfully. That we set up all the Facebook pages, we set up all the Twitter accounts, we set up expectations and posting strategies and best practices. And I think a lot of it comes from the upper management buy-off on the need of this behavior. And then it's up to the passion and the local voices available on the sites in order to really fill them in with the right color and fill them in with what would matter to the people that would follow our news threads and get us more exposure. And as Mark said, it really is kind of boxing out under the boards. It's who can take up the most real estate online. So if we have good, vibrant Facebook and good, vibrant, colorful blogs, then we're going to get seen, but more importantly, our content is going to be valuable.
Yeah. No, I think that you're right, and I like how you use the word behavior, and I think that has a lot to do with training. It becomes, behavior is a learned behavior a lot of times. It's not something, a lot of times people are born to be marketers or born to be, able to understand technology, but it is that buy-off. So how have you over at Princeton been able to address that behavior? Is it through, do you have, a built-in training program, or what's the situation right now for you all?
We do have built-in training programs. I'll go back 3 years ago. This is how serious we took it. About 3 years ago, we made MySpace pages and Facebook pages and, now MyWho, but we were trying to be early adopters of these places. And at the time, we taught webinars. We created manuals. I have video internal documents that people can go back and watch the videos for reminders of how to do things. And I'm sure Jonathan can speak to this. Things change all the time, and our Facebook strategies change all the time. So we have video blogs memorialized up on our intranet. People can go and refresh them, and it also gives accountability. It gives our site teams an expectation that they're living within, and we give suggested postings. We try to give them as much background noise that they can or need to digest what their expectation is, because I really think knowledge is power, and the more we tell them why we're doing what we're doing, the more successful they'll be to fill it in.
No, I agree, and I think that you also hit on. I love these conversations because it really is, kind of like reflective thinking, and really to help the industry better understand. And one of the things that the takeaway that you brought in just now was that technology is constantly changing. Like here you are building on MySpace, and then now it's MyWho, and trying to keep up with that. But it's not just the technology, but it's also the training. And I think that sometimes, in my humble opinion, it's good to go out to a company like Jonathan's to say, what are those tools? Because that's their job at the end of the day, is to go in and say, this makes sense. This is what we do for a living. We specialize in your industry, but maybe, Jonathan, I don't want to toot your horn, but maybe you can help explain what you do for the industry in the sense of what have you seen the industry's adoption rate looking like, and what do you see as being, you've had a great opportunity of being able to meet with companies and to find out what their current status quo is when it comes to social media. And you've probably heard a lot of different stories as to, oh my God, the dreaded, how do I go about adopting, and why should I be doing this, and why does it really matter, and is it bringing me leases, and all these different types of questions. From a training side, we have to be accountable to that. We have to train our people to say, yes, these are the reasons why we do this, and we're measuring it this way, that way, and that way. What are you seeing as being the case from an outside perspective as a vendor, looking at it, with the apartment, professionals out there that are dealing with it on a day-to-day?
Well, definitely the buy-in is changed in the past couple of years.
Has it?
I never thought a couple of years ago that I'd even be doing what I'm doing. That's not even what I was hired to do. But now it's turned into where, property management companies have asked me to come and just work with them and talk to them a little bit, our clients specifically, just to be able to sort out what they're going through. And so, I've seen both sides of the spectrum, from companies like Mark's and Sarah's who have from top down, omnidirectional. They're working with all their people to help them understand And then there's those who are have just passed it off to someone in marketing or PR, and there's not really that connection. So what I've tried to at least set a baseline for is that in my experience, the more people that are involved in it, at least as far as from an awareness standpoint of what it does, then everybody's going to be more comfortable with it. It's very similar to what we work with from let's take a maintenance professional, for instance. They may have certain things that they need to know, but unless the community manager and the regional also kind of has some knowledge and background in it, they're not going to be able to successfully make sure that they're doing their job properly.
Sure.
And so the same thing from our perspective applies to being able to use the social media tools, whether it's just internally as a corporation or whether it's to connect with the residents, that there needs to be at least some sort of cohesiveness and comfortable level so that everybody understands the role and they're not just like kind of pointing fingers, well, that's your job, but it's something that everybody's involved in.
No, sure. Well, I think that one of the things that I was reading about, it's interesting, it's, customer service, or quality, I should say, quality was kind of, prior to Chrysler's Iacocca coming out, during his tenure as a CEO, was really not really considered, a consideration that quality was important across all parts of across all parts of a company, and so only certain people would deal with the negative of quality assurance, and they're like, well, we don't really even know who's dealing with that. And that's kind of one of the things with social media is that it seems like people want to participate, but it seems also that they want to either take it, like what you said, to a marketing PR side and let only people deal with that, and there's almost like it's almost like a hindsight behind the scenes kind of thought for everybody else. And so I'm still grappling with that. How does a company really get their teams to see that this is actually something that really does belong, and it's part of, it should be ingrained in everybody's psyche when they come to work, that they have to understand at least the fundamentals of social media? I mean, is that important, or is it not that important? I mean, should we all be social, or should we have just a core group of marketing and PR? Maybe Mark, I'll come back to you, swing it back to you, to get your thoughts on that.
Am I still on a delay? How much of a delay am I on now? It's 15, 20 seconds, 2 minutes. Can you hear me?
No, that too.
Yeah.
30. Or 30.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to participate.
No, go for it, Mike. Mark.
30 seconds. I don't know if it makes sense for me to talk, but I tell you what, I'll just talk anyway, and we'll kind of get things going, I guess. I don't even remember the question at this point. This is so frustrating. For me, I guess I did a presentation at AIM last year, and it was about being part of the neighborhood. And one of the things that I think for me, I was trying to relate with when it comes to social media, what I've been trying to do with our company is relate it back to something that is not new. And the not new thing for me was community outreach and working within your community with local businesses, maybe even the residents within your community, those kind of things. So it's really about local networking for our strategy at our company, and that's kind of where I've been taking it, because it relates it back to something we've been doing in our industry for a long time, which is asking people to go out to the local bank or go out to maybe the local bank or business around the corner, the dry cleaner, make that connection. But now we're sharing that connection online, and that's been more of our strategy.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, actually, and I'm glad that you brought up that it really is, when you look at social media, you should look at it from the sense of just starting with the fundamentals of what you know, which is outreach. And if that means going in and talking to your local, well, then do that through the digital and do that through the social. And so makes a lot of sense that that's and probably one of the really strong key takeaways when you're looking at having your teams adopt social media is to keep it in the spirit of what they already know, which is we've got to outreach. And so if you keep it in that spirit and get them trained to just apply it now as an extension through social media, all the better and all the easier. So thank you, Mark. I keep calling you Mike, sorry. Anyway, but what about social media policies? That's is that a fundamental that we also need, Sarah? Do you think that people need to have a very structured type of program when it comes to their social media?
Well, Carmen, that's interesting. I've written Facebook policies, I've written social media policies, all sorts of stuff for the company, but we haven't implemented them because I'm wavering. I have a disclaimer that all of our employees work under that I wrote up that really just sort of broad strokes that the purpose of social networking really is for professional purposes, and your voice when it's going out to the public is the voice of the company. It's not your individual voice. And we left it that vague for now. We don't want to throttle down or scare anyone and keep it an open forum the best we can. I think for me, the most important part is setting expectation, not setting policy. So for us, it's more setting procedure and what we are trying to get out of our employees and what we really are trying to accomplish at the end of the day. So that's been more of our focus here.
Yeah, well, I honestly kind of agree with you on that too, I can appreciate people. Unfortunately, Sarah wasn't able to join us today, Sarah Graham. She had a client meeting, but, she has recently deployed her social media policies. She wrote them out. Took about 9 months for her to get to that point, get through that process with legal and HR. But there are some things like, let me find it really quickly. There was a recent reminder out there that your employees can actually speak collectively about your company. They can't whine necessarily, but they can say certain things that are about the company and that they're still protected. So that's one of the reasons why when you do set up your policies to really, if you are going to go down that path, you have to get your legal team involved. It's not especially if you've got, thousands of employees or even hundreds, you want to make sure that you're creating the right environment without stifling that environment and stating things that, could essentially be a liability to you. Jonathan, do you see a lot of people still asking for social media policies, and do you seem to help out with that at all?
No, I just share Mark's. Mark's is awesome. He let me have a copy of it, and I get questions on it all the time. So I defer to my property management friends because they've been working through this process on their level. So for us, we don't really need to have one for the size of company that we are. It's just not necessary. But I definitely, highlight some key examples like Princeton, like J.C. Hart and Eric Urbane. They have been pioneering this for such a long time now. They already know all the hiccups and stuff that come along. And so we've got some great industry examples. And I agree with Sarah, too. It's interesting to look at it from an expectation standpoint as opposed to policy, because the moment anybody hears policy, they just think rules, and then they shrink back in fear, and then it becomes a disconnect. There's nothing there to do other than worry about if you do something, are you going to get in trouble? So I applaud Sarah. That's great.
Agree. I think that I agree. Keeping it at expectations rather than policy makes a lot of sense, Sarah. So I'm glad that you all have taken that stance and can appreciate it. Not everybody will take that stance, like Sarah Graham has taken a different approach, but it's about the corporate philosophy. And for Dolben, they have a certain philosophy that they're following, and that makes a lot of sense for their employees. And so I applauded Sarah Graham for, being able to come out and roll something out like that over at Dolben, and hopefully she'll come back and have some insight. Now, when it comes to technology as a final bit, have you all seen any types of tools out there that, we've been now on this space for some time, but have you seen tools out there? When I look at it, I've looked at social media from the internal side, from the client side, but also from the external side. But that's my point, is that there are internal and external resources that you can use to deploying a social media program and a social media training program to get people started. Is anybody using any types of specific technology or tools, like, maybe Jonathan, I know that you guys have a video forum that you utilize with your customers. Mark, what do you guys use?
We use Jonathan's program.
Yeah.
How long's the delay here? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
5 seconds.
It's better.
Go.
We use Jonathan's program at the Training Factor.
Yeah. What programs do you use?
It's getting better? Okay. So, we use Jonathan's program at the Training Factor, and we incorporate some video things, and we've actually created our own videos. So we have our own videos that we recorded in an online tutorial. And then we ask questions at the end of the tutorial using Jonathan's network, so that we can kind of quiz people at the end as well.
Very cool. Good on you, Jonathan, for delivering such a program. People should be aware of that. It's really good. These tools are important. So I'm glad, Mark, that you were able to speak, on behalf of Jonathan's company. That's very good. And you could probably go to thetrainingfactor.com to find out more. Not a clip there for you, Jonathan, but just to let people know about it. I think those things are important.
Well, can I just add one other thing in there too? I'll tell you from a training perspective, it's been, I've gone into so many live classrooms where everybody was scared out of their mind. And it's amazing to see when you get in there and you've got a really nice curriculum going, and to have them walk out feeling empowered. So there's a lot of online tools that are available out there, but I know Mark does a lot of one-on-one stuff with his people. There's nothing that beats that when you get into a group session and just use that as a tool to see how it is in action, as opposed to just A, B, C, D, E, F. This is how you set up a Twitter page. And when they see it live, and you're kind of taking the lead on that, it's amazing to see the happiness, I guess is the best word, because they're scared of it ahead of time, and then they can walk out saying, now I know what to do. I've seen it in action, and I've seen what it can do for my community.
Sure. Sarah, did you have any final thoughts about technology and things? Have you all introduced that, or are you still keeping it on the corporate side primarily?
We handle most of our video training in-house, but we do use a lot of examples from the industry. We point most of our staff members to Jonathan's information on a regular basis. We ask them to consistently read the Training Factor's blogs and be aware of it, and I'll often have sound bites coming out of things that Jonathan has pushed out, or even that Mark's pushed out. We work with Duncan from Firebelly as well, and we just make sure that we are open-eared and that we're aware of what's going on, and then internally I basically digest this information and Princetonize it and make it appropriate for our staff in videos and tutorials internally.
No, that's excellent, feedback. Duncan is also a really good and well-regarded guy, and Firebelly Marketing does a very good job. I wasn't aware that they did training, so glad to hear that they also provide training resources. At the end of the day, I get a little nervous about technology when it comes to social media training, not necessarily about Jonathan's type of training. I think video training is different, but when it comes to some of the technologies out there, but there are really good technology tools that help to enable teams to adopt social media. But I think you really first have to get your teams on it. And I think that a lot of times the best resource really comes, I think the deployment of a social media program, if you're going to train anybody on it, is to start at the top and work out into a multiple layered type of program. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for companies to go in and do a decentralized type of piecemealed, fragmented, on your own type of program. There's too much money involved when it comes to your brand, which was one of the things that we highlighted earlier through Mark's, testament about it. And I think that we really need to be very cognizant of those dollars when it comes to how we build out that brand. So, first thing for me as a person, if I were looking at it, as final little thought, is really to allow the company to first manage it and then broadcast that out, in a way that makes sense for each of the communities. Again, I really appreciate you all being here. I wanted to stop really quickly though and reflect on Mr. Russ Sandlin, who has, word has, come out today that he unfortunately tragically passed away in a boating accident. And I think it's really important to reflect and give honor to a man that has spent the last 34 odd years in the industry. And if you go to multihousingnews.com, you'll actually read a really nice piece about Mr. Sandlin. But again, my heart and thoughts are out with his family. I know that you all feel the same. Jonathan, I know you had the pleasure of being on a panel with him at one of the multifamily. Was it which organization or which program?
Brainstorming.
It was with
brainstorming last year. I was on a panel with Russ.
Yeah, so I know that he's touched many different people, and so again, our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family and those in the industry. So thank you all again, Mark, Julene of J.C. Hart, Sarah Greenall of Princeton Properties, Jonathan Sarr, thank you very much for joining us today with the Training Factor. Myself, Carmen Benitez with Fetch Plus, really glad to have chatted with you guys, and we look forward to bringing you back all again for another video chat with Apartment Social Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.